sit for a second because sometimes there's a lag, but it does seem like we're going live. So this is episode 126 of the 48-hour art check. Yeah. And I just had a brief moment of feeling nostalgic and missing our little animated intro.
I need to re-render that and get that going. Maybe I'll do another one by way of procrastination. I'll do that instead of what I should be doing.
I like that. Procrastination.
We're going to do a whole new one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just can't get around to converting the other one, so I'm just going to make a whole new one.
I didn't say it made sense. It's just is appealing.
Yeah.
I was about to make a dad joke about oranges being very appealing. All right, so let's get into the check. What did you guys get done in the last 48 hours or longer? I guess.
I can go. Because I can go really fast. Very little, almost nothing. I've been working on a few things, but it's been like start and stop with very little progress. So it's kind of like incremental things. I've been trying to figure out how to do a time delayed expression chain on a series of layers in After Effects. And I don't know why I'm doing that right now, because like with everything going on, I probably should be doing something mindless because I can't focus on anything and I'm not good at math in the first place. And so every time I try to do anything complicated, it's not happening right now. So, and then I've been doing some figure drawing to bone up for some stuff that I'm trying to put together for a client.
Awesome.
And that encapsulates the last week, which is probably the least amount of work I've gotten done in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to be. This will tie into our topic and stuff too. But I think quite a few of us have had a pretty bad slump like the last week with external stuff, kind of outside of your control kind of stuff happening. It's pretty heavy, and so I can also say like just that description of trying to do math. In that kind of mindset, I instantly have flashed back to scenarios where I've had that, where I'll be staring at a screen and I'll do the same thing about 20 times.
Yeah.
And each time I progressively mess it up more.
And you're not sure why.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part, is like you look at it and you just don't know why it's not working. You know that you've made it worse, but you're not sure which variable is actually causing anything to happen.
Yeah, it's like almost like just something's not firing. So like all the mechanics of the mind are there, but there's just something misfiring. It's very frustrating. All right, what about you, Scott? What did you get accomplished?
So yeah, I've been actually pretty busy ever since I think last Thursday. I've been kind of doing these back-to-back conferences. So I've got a client who does a big conference every year, and it just so happened that he scheduled it the same time as the Phoenix Design Week conference. But his started a little earlier, so I couldn't make the whole thing. But I did Thursday, and then a little just early on Friday, and then from there I went to set up, because I actually had a booth at Phoenix Design Week, the conference.
Nice.
So I set that up on Friday. Then we have and then October is always crazy because I'm kind of jump around, but I'm also doing Inktober. That's one of the things I'm doing, which I don't know why I decided to do Inktober, because October is always crazy. It's even crazier now because I've got like in my family there's just tons of October birthdays. My daughter, my brother, my mom, cousins. So we had a big party on Friday, and then from there, I had to go wake up super early because I live pretty far out of town to drive into Phoenix to set up early or just get things going early on the conference. And I did that Saturday and Sunday. And I got, I had to break everything down, got back late yesterday. And then so today's just kind of been catching up and stuff like that. I've been working on getting the video. Usually I try to put one out on Monday. This one's going to have to go up on Tuesday, but it'll kind of be sort of a little bit of a recap of the Design Week convention, kind of comparing exhibiting at design conventions to Comic Cons, or not conventions, but conferences.
Got it.
And I kind of wanted to, I mean, Cory and I went to Creative South, and they've got sort of vendor areas over there too, but it's a little different. So I kind of wanted to test it out and see if I like it, if I wanted to do it. I'm not sure if I would want to do it at Creative South or not. But I'll have the video up tomorrow. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing. Just mostly but it's just been kind of nonstop.
So without getting like too much of a spoiler,
Yeah.
I am like, my curiosity is piqued, and so I'm definitely gonna watch that video. But
Yeah.
Can we get like a slight teaser? Like, do you want to give a slight hint at like what?
Yeah. I don't mind telling. So basically, my thinking going into it was that that design conference I do a little better, even though there's way less people. It's a few hundred versus tens of thousands.
Yeah.
But everyone there's a designer, so they're looking there. I figured they'd be looking at the art and everything. Not necessarily just for their favorite character or whatever. But all in all, I mean, there were some pluses, but all in all, it was barely profitable, but there's more to it than that. So, in a little bit of a spoiler, I may do it again at Phoenix Con, Phoenix Design Week. But I would change some things around. I don't know if I would do it at Creative South, because for one, Creative South's in a whole different area, and at least with the way the setup was at the Phoenix conference, I could at least sit there and watch the speakers. So basically, what it comes down to is, even though I'm not making a ton of money selling stuff, I'm still able to enjoy the conference for the most part. I could have enjoyed it more if there's some things I knew that I could do, which I didn't really, because I just kind of waited basically waited at the table. My table, even though when everyone went out to lunch or to breakout sections, it was just dead. So I could have left, and partake in all of that. And I did sort of the second day, but knowing that going into it, I would just go about the conference like I normally would, because, and stay at the table. There's certain times at the table now that I know that that's when people are there, and I would do that. But when people kind of broke out and did the sessions, I would do that, and I would go out to lunch with people and talk with people and do all that kind of stuff. But that's pretty much the gist of it. And all these. I mean, this is just one design conference. I mean, others may be different. Maybe who knows? Maybe I could make a killing at Creative South. But then it's also, I also got to take a plane and getting product out there and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that would, I wouldn't have as cool of a setup, and so I don't know. But
I'd imagine like Adobe Max too. You'd murder there in sales, but I'm imagining like that's equivalent to like, well, you'll really kill it at San Diego Comic-Con or something. It's
and the thing is, this was one of the things that's relatively pretty inexpensive. Whereas Adobe, I don't think that's the case. I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be in that same ballpark. But that's fascinating, and that's cool. And I can't wait to kind of check out the video and find out more, because I've been curious about that, because I've had similar suspicions. So I feel like you get to be the test pilot for all of us who are curious about it. Cool. So I got let me show it. So on a nerdy side project thing, I've been like trying to luthier a guitar, and I got like a luthier's ruler and figured out how to adjust a truss rod properly, which is kind of exciting. So that's like step one. of a little stupid side project on a guitar that I'm going to mod a little bit. And then I got this guy almost finished, and decided I would try to work on it a little bit, even though we don't tend to work on stuff too much on the 48-hour check. I'm like, I want to get in. I'm kind of in the zone, so I want to get that done. But yeah, I mean that, and then some revisions for a client, and then we'll get into challenges and stuff. There's a little more I would have liked, but some stuff came up. So
I can't remember. Is that the second to the last page, or is that the last page?
Second to last.
Okay.
So, which is kind of exciting, but as I'm getting closer to the last page, it's starting to dawn on me the amount of work that is still left over just to prep a book.
Yeah.
But it's still cool to be that close, like done with the interiors, you know? So yeah. Kind of surreal and weird, because it's kind of like almost that point of like, and now what? kind of feeling. Which I'm trying to fight, because you got to kind of keep momentum with these kind of things. But yeah. So yeah, what were your challenges without getting into anything you guys wouldn't want to talk about on here?
An endless barrage of garbage nonstop for a week, just constantly from every direction without getting into too much stuff. And then also, I ate some undercooked chicken today at a restaurant, and I think I'm coming off of some food poisoning. Yeah, just to really round things out. And then, yeah. So I mean, that's all this stuff. Those are all the excuses. The main challenge has just been getting started and staying going on anything and focusing on anything has been kind of a challenge. And so there's that. My car won't work, and it's dipping below the 30s in temperature. So riding my motorcycle to work is becoming uncomfortable. So yeah, I'm probably fighting some minor depression-ish stuff is probably where I'm at.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there's that.
Yeah. I'm kind of right there. I think I like
that. Yeah, and I think you know, I don't want to get into too much detail or anything, but I will say just the stuff you've been dealing with is rough and pretty heavy. Like I think would impact most people, and so to me, just the fact that you're kind of powering through to the level that you are is pretty impressive. So, all right, Scott, what about you? Challenges?
Challenges, basically just, you know, that's a hard one. I think I think just time. I mean, I've been doing, you know, trying to juggle all these conventions and or whatever you want to, conferences or whatever, and I just haven't. I basically, you know, get home late and then I crash, or I gotta get, or you know, I got my puppy here and she gets. I haven't left her alone that long for a while. I mean, my son was here watching her for a little bit, but she, you know, I got her potty trained, so that's not an issue. But she, you know, she needs interaction, or else she just wrecks stuff. So when I get home, if it's late, I just take her for a walk or whatever, and then by that time, I got to crash, and then I wake up and early again. So today was the first day I was trying to, you know, kind of get caught up on stuff, but there's still so many things I just need to get back on track. You know, I have so many projects, these digital products and things and opportunities that are kind of hovering there that I need to get to. So, and I've got some other opportunities for possible freelance work. And it's like, do I want to do that, or do I, you know, cause it's probably be decent money, but or do I want to focus on some of these other things that could be more money but they just take some setup time and everything. So anyway, that's kind of the deal.
That does sound challenging. Yeah, for me, the biggest challenge, it's not really that big compared to some of the stuff you guys have been going through. But so you'll notice this is probably reflected last year around the same exact time, the same challenge. So Southern California has this weird habit of lighting on fire pretty much every October. And those fires pretty much put out every freeway that comes to where I live from where I work. So I had a day where I spent 2.5 hours getting to work, just taking this weird route because of these fires that were near my work. And then after working an 8-hour shift, I spent 8 hours in my car being rerouted and constantly into these areas that are like 1 mile per hour, like through a canyon where there's like no reception on my phone, and like all these weird areas where you're just doing these like figure eights around like what would be a very direct route. And so I wound up getting home around 10:30 at night. Work shift that starts, I usually leave here around 7, so it's a long day. And so that pretty much put me out for Friday. And I still managed to get in my workout, but after that I was just like, no, like, just not. I thought I'd like power through and do comic stuff, but I missed that day. And then like Saturday, I didn't even realize like how exhausted I was from just driving for 8 hours. And keep in mind, this isn't like normal driving, like for 8 hours where you're like heading to Vegas or something. This is like driving where people just lose their crap and like pull onto oncoming traffic, do all this stupid stuff because everybody's frustrated and they're moving like a mile an hour, or they haven't moved for an hour and a half. And so, but like, once again, it's like very small issues. Like we're not in proximity to the fire. Nobody I know's home got lost or anything like that. So it could have been a lot worse, but still, that was a big curveball that screwed up my flow. And then just focus. Like I've been getting obsessed with this guitar thing, and that started to split my focus, and that's a problem I have because I'm very targeted with like what I get interested in. And so if my interest splits, it can be a real challenge to kind of keep showing up and hitting the table. So yeah, so that's basic. I mean, it's nothing nothing equivalent to the kind of stuff you guys have been dealing with, but
yeah, it still sucks though.
Yeah,
I mean, I always say like if you've got a broken arm and somebody else has a broken arm and a broken leg, you still have a broken arm.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. Comparison is not terribly useful.
Oh, so. Yeah, entirely. And it can be kind of destructive too. Because, if you start comparing negatively, you can start comparing positively. And then that ends up in like a whole bad cycle,
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's get into plans. Like, so what are your plans for the next check or whatever?
Oh, okay. So I've got a bid I need to get out. There's a pretty cool client that I want to work with that has approached me. That would be awesome. And I've just got to put together a bid, which is time consuming. And again, is one of those things where like with everything going on right now, it's hard to focus on stuff like that. I'm not good at focusing on stuff like that at the best of times, but I need to get that out tonight. And then start anything and finish it. That's I don't even know. So I think I've got some client work that I'm planning on knocking out the next kind of phase of that before Wednesday. And if I've got any more time, I'm trying to do some more life studies, just trying to figure out how to draw people a little bit better. So I don't know if any of that will happen, but some of it will, because some of it has to. So
Nice. I mean, this is a tip, and I don't know if it'll work, but it's like maybe it would be good to just do one sticker, not a whole sticker stint. Just do like
right.
one quick design, just to have that win to like get you back in the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried that a couple times, and it's just like the worst blank canvas, thing ever. I'm just staring at a blank page for an hour, and then I go to bed or end up playing video games. So yeah, so I do need to do something like that, because I need some sort of like win or completion fast. But
Or possibly just do a little diary comic that you don't share, and maybe share later on, because it is a fascinating thing.
yeah, that's true.
Anyhow, I don't know, but that's, it's always easier from the sidelines to be like, why don't you try a jump shot? Well, what about you, Scott? Like, what are your plans?
So that's I need, well, like I said, I gotta contact these potential clients and kind of find out the scope of what they want me to do, and if it's one of these jobs that pays really well and doesn't require a massive amount of just kind of channeling all my time into it, then I probably will take it on. But in any case, I need to start. Basically, what I need to do is, I don't know, like a reset or something, or try to just kind of evaluate all this stuff and find out, take a inventory and figure out what's priority, allocate time, because I got to get back on, because I have, like I said, I've got opportunities to do certain digital products and partner with certain people.
Yeah.
And so I've got to at least make some headway on that kind of stuff. And then maybe, maybe work on this client project. It's kind of a weird thing. I'll probably, if I take it on, I may get into it a little more, but it's something that's like, it's one of these things that it's not something I really believe in. So I don't know, but it's nothing that, I don't know. It's nothing I'm being cryptic, but I'll know more about the project when I actually see what they say. But
so basically it's porn. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's not. It's more of a political thing that I don't really believe. It's marketed to a certain political ideology, but I don't really think that it's actually going to change any minds or anything. If I thought it did, then I probably wouldn't do it. But I just like, if this is a product that's going to take some money from some people who I don't really believe in their political ideology, then I don't really care. Type of thing. That's their kind of, if that's what they want to, spend their money on, then fine. So I don't know, but it does sound, aside from the subject matter, it sounds like it might be fun to do. It's a weird thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into it, because I don't even know for sure what it is, but just from what little I know about it. So but I can tell you guys off, if you guys are curious. I can tell you off camera.
Yeah,
Squatchy's decided for you.
Do it, yeah. And I don't really have, I mean, there's certain things that I won't. I'm not going to say I'll just do anything, but sometimes and even though I'm trying to move away from client work for the most part, there's sometimes you just got to sort of be like a mercenary, and just But there is a line. I don't really think this crosses the line. So
right.
I mean, just to share with everybody too, like before I was like, now I'm a Christian, but before I was a Christian, I was like a really avid atheist, like very dogmatic about it, very like anti any religious institution. And definitely not the type of person who'd be like nice in a conversation with somebody who was religious, which I feel bad about, but that's just who I was at the time. And at that time, I did like the cover for US Catholic, because I needed the work and they paid and they were a nice client, but I didn't agree with, at the time, I thought it was propaganda for like the devil, except, I didn't even believe in the devil at the time, but you know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, I think it is one of those things of like, you draw your lines. Like there were clients I definitely rejected for like some really sleazy stuff. They wanted to hire me to draw, and I was like, I just can't, like morally. But there's other places where you just like, I don't know, where's your line in the sand? And then also, do you want a roof over your head? Like every once in a while, you kind of have to take work you aren't necessarily like 110% on board with. So, at least that's my stance on it. And I think a lot of illustrators. So keep that in mind when you guys are looking at articles or things that are illustrated by illustrators. One thing that's neat too, editorial illustrators do all the time, is they'll put in like their own viewpoint kind of snuck in. So it's pretty funny. Sometimes you'll see like a really one-way leaning article and the editorial will have like a little snippy comment within the illustration to kind of undercut the whole thing. So it's, anyhow, just something kind of interesting about illustration. That doesn't really come up often as a topic. That would be a great topic for maybe another time.
Yeah, well, if I get into it, we can kind of go a little deeper on it. So
I love it. All right, so you guys want to talk about our topic? I thought it would be appropriate because I had like a rough go getting back in the zone. And that was from like a relatively minor thing. And then just talking to you guys, it seems like we're all kind of feeling a bit of a slump. And so I just thought I'm sure we visited that topic before because illustration and visual communication is hard. And so with things that are hard, every once in a while you're going to hit slumps. And so I thought it might be fun for us to just kind of open it up and just talk about like potential strategies for us to get out of slumps. And then obviously, hopefully that'll have a broader appeal to like everybody in the chats and stuff. Because if you're an artist, you're going to face different challenges. You're going to face, just as a human being in life, you're going to be faced with a lot of things that are completely out of your control that kind of derail your plans and maybe ruin your momentum and stuff. And so slumps are like a natural part of the whole process. And so hopefully like from us just talking it through and trying to kind of work it out, maybe that's we'll come across stuff our listeners and stuff can apply to their own work. And then if you guys are in the chats and you've ever gotten in deep in a slump, give us your tips on how to get out, because I think we're all kind of in one. So so it might not hurt to hear. So what do you guys think? Like what's the way out? Like what's the way to get kind of re-engaged? Because like at least for me, my biggest struggle right now, and it sounds like it's maybe a minute version of what you guys are experiencing, is I'm just not like, it's that split focus, the thing I was talking about, where it's like my interests are elsewhere, my brain is kind of elsewhere, and it's really hard to stay engaged enough to make worthwhile work. Because I could show up to the art table, but if I'm showing up and I'm kind of half cocked or like halfway into it, it's going to show in the work. And so for me, that's kind of my struggle with the whole thing right now. I don't know about you guys, but do you guys have any ideas about like ways to kind of deal with that, ways to get out of that kind of slump?
Well, it seems like right now, Cory and I are like have two very different things going on right now. And I think the way it's kind of affecting us is kind of a little bit different. It seems like Cory's really having a hard time getting anything done, whereas my thing is that I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm trying to, but just the nature of all this stuff that was happening at the time that I had already kind committed to these conferences and things. I'm just so busy that I've kind of like thrown myself into my work. So I mean, the problem is there waiting for me that I haven't really dealt with, but I have to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I might as well just say it's just a relationship thing. My girlfriend and I mean, I think it's over. I mean, we've kind of been in and out, but it's kind of, I think now it's over. But anyway, so, and this is a long-term relationship, 8 years. So I'll just throw that out there. But I haven't really been able to process anything because I've been just so busy. But I got to at some point, you know, because that's a long period of time, and things are going to be different now. So that's something that I've got to deal with. And I mean, part of, you know, a lot of, you know, the way I deal with stuff is to throw myself into my work and everything. And I'm sure if Cory, and he can speak for himself, but I'm sure if he could, he would probably do the same. But sometimes it just doesn't work like that. I mean, so I don't know. That's kind of what I've been doing, but it's still, you know, I don't have like chronic depression, but in situations like this, it's situational.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, there's like ups and downs and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I don't know. I got to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think to a certain extent, like with me, I'm compounding the problem because every day that goes by that I'm not getting done what I want to and need to get done builds and piles on. And so I kind of decided, like no matter what, that I would get stuff done today, you know, and so I just decided that it was kind of a non-negotiable because it had become, it has become and is continuing because I've been working for a couple hours before we went live to no avail and to no success. And so I think I chose the wrong thing. So it's not due to lack of effort, but I don't feel like I'm making any progress.
Yeah.
But I mean, it has, I'm failing every single day, you know, every time I'm trying to do anything, even if I can get past the resistance of procrastination or distraction, I'm drawing a blank. I'm completely like tapped out. And so part of that is, I typically have a series of practices in my life that help maintain and refill my creativity.
Yeah.
So that I can kind of draw on that whenever I need to. But I haven't been able to do that. And I think instinctively I kind of saw this coming last week at the beginning of the week when all of this stuff started. But I've just kind of run the well dry. Like I'm throwing the bucket down there and I can't pull anything up because there's just nothing down there. And so I have to do some sort of rejuvenating activities and some sort of something, you know, to kind of get to the point where I can, you know, have something to draw from. And that's, I just have to relearn how to do that because it's become so second nature to me that I can't remember exactly what it is that I do typically, you know? And so, anyway, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as that goes, it is nice to have deadlines because, you know, there are some non-negotiable things that I just have to get done.
Yeah.
And so there's some of that I'm, you know, you just have to do it. And so that stuff is getting done. So I can't say that I haven't gotten anything done, but it's the extra stuff. It's the side projects. It's that, and I've got some ideas, and I've sketched out some of those things, but every time I try it, I either am just coming up short or completely missing the mark or giving up before I start and just wasting the evening or whatever. So anyway,
Yeah.
I can't remember what I was talking about. That was a long rambly thing. Basically to say that I've got it. My break is over. It actually started as kind of a relaxing, like I'm going to take a couple days off after I wrap this project, and that was really nice. And then all of this stuff seemed to hit right as I was about ready to jump back into a project. I really just wanted to take like a weekend and relax.
Yeah. Which there's absolutely nothing wrong with.
Right. Yeah. And that's normally fine. But it was just really bad timing for all of this stuff. So,
yeah.
So anyway, so it's been longer and it gets worse. It gets worse by the day, like, because it's just compounding. And so part of my solution, I think, is instead of giving into the temptation of beating myself up over the past, even if it's the recent past, just live in the present and do what you got to do today, rather than, worry about everything you haven't done over the last week or so.
Yeah. I mean, I think, for me, cause I empathize because I deal with things one of two ways, and it's pretty much the two ways you guys are both struggling with when things get that heavy. Like when I was like in my early 20s, like my dad passed away while I was in school, and I had a lot of friends who, when they like lost family or whatever, they just like completely like imploded and like took like a year off or like 2 years off. And I did the absolute opposite. Like I had just transferred to Cal State Long Beach, and for some reason my way of processing was like to overdo it. So I was like, became obsessed with getting 4.0s and showing up to every single class and doing the homework better than anyone there. And it was like, it was productivity, but to a point of like danger, because like I remember at the time I used to bike places and I would just run my bike into like lampposts, like, because I was so exhausted. I'd just be biking and just bam, just head on to a lamppost and then, just show up to school all bloodied and stuff. But I'd get my work done and I'd do it perfectly. And like, it took me years. In fact, still honestly, as an adult, I don't think I've ever really fully processed that whole thing. Although there's a lot of acceptance and stuff that happens over time, but it's just, that was my way with that. But then there have been times where I've gone the opposite and had total difficulty. I mean, that's a very extreme example, but it's just one of those things of like, I get the doubling down because that's kind of be my inclination. But there are other times where I'm just totally paralyzed. And for me, what I find in those times is usually it's my brain creating lists, because and that's how I function. Like I function based on lists and productivity. I mean, as somebody who's an art director or was an art director, it's like you'd probably relate to that. It's like we're very list process oriented people. Right. The problem with lists though is like when you're making lists of like, yep, there's another time I screwed up. Yep, there's another thing. Yep, okay, it's another pile. And you're creating this whole list. So then the next time you sit down, you're bringing that entire list with you, at least for me.
Yeah.
And which would be just like a massive burden to carry. And a lot of the time it's self-enforced stuff like this comic, where it's like this comic is not going to die if I don't work on it for a week.
Right.
But I tell myself to be productive and get it done. But if I get to that point where the comic's like owning me, to the extent where I start getting super depressed about like missing a day or something, rather than just like the motivational part of it. That's where it's like crossover from like good to bad productivity, you know. And it's a fine line. It's hard to dance and it's hard to know. And I think when things, outer circumstances come up, I mean, heck, like, you know, just from having a kid, I didn't work on my comic for 2 years, you know, because I just did not have time. I couldn't find time. And when I did find time, I couldn't find inspiration. I just couldn't feel it. So I think there's just seasons. I think sometimes it's actually, this is no excuse. I think if you want to make stuff, you should be making stuff. But I do think there are some seasons where it's okay to like kind of digest and chill. And there are some seasons where it's okay to like overwork and not think about it. Cause that's a, I don't know, at least to me, like the thought on the overwork thing is as long as you're not doing it to the detriment of your own health, you know,
Right.
Okay way to process things. But if your brain's just scattered because you're being pulled like multiple ways, you know, you got to remember like what you do accomplish, because it's like you are working on client work, you are working a full-time job, you know, you're also raising a kid. It's like, you know, at that age where it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most time consuming age ranges you can be at. So it's like, you know, there's a lot you're juggling. And so it would make sense. Like if something kind of comes and like, I don't know, you're juggling 5 things and somebody just swats one of the pins you're juggling, you know, that can really screw up the flow. And that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know, but like methods to get out of it, I guess for me, it's like showing up, but trying to, at least for me, showing up but trying to not bring a list when I show up. So like maybe that does mean instead of a sticker, what's something you're less attached to? You know?
Yeah.
Like maybe like just do like a straight up life drawing and just see it through. And if it sucks, let it suck. You know?
Right. And I've even tried like, you know, how can, you know, dig through the repertoire of things that I've done and see if there's an older illustration that I can animate. And I think that would be really useful in most situations, but like in this mindset, digging through my portfolio is just like punishment. Like I'm just beating myself up for all of the work that I've done that I hate. It's like,
I think that to me, like I almost think you should just choose to fail at something. Like just be like, I'm gonna make a big freaking failure of a splattered ink piece. Like just experiment with textures and just screw up a page and screw it up and give myself permission to just completely fail at it. And then if you fail at it, you succeeded at what you set out to do, and you still have like a project out of your way, which I think might help. I mean, I don't know. Because to me, like sometimes I'll get locked into things I like doing. And if I do something like, you know what, I'll just paint a portrait because I just never paint.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe just doing something outside of your wheelhouse that you're not as attached to, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know all of it for you because each thing's different, but it's like that's stuff I've done in the past. Sometimes just allowing myself to be like, you know what, I'm gonna doodle and it's just gonna suck. That's
and I like the idea of allowing myself to fail. I did try something outside of my wheelhouse. Like I made 200 like 1/12 scale bricks and attempted to like do a diorama, like brick wall city scene situation. And that was fun. I mean, I spent about 8.5 hours on that over a weekend, and it was, I enjoyed doing it. And then at the end, I didn't give myself permission. I expected it to be really good. Like I was looking for it to be really good. And, it turned out miserably bad. So, but I think that's kind of key. I think what you're saying is key is if I were to, just allow myself, I don't know. I mean, these are all things I tell my students. I had a conversation with a student recently and he said, how do you get out of your own head? And anyway, I should just read my email to him, to myself. Cause it was a lot of this. It was just like, you're going to be bad at it. You've got to give yourself permission to fail, and it's going to be bad until it gets better, and it'll be bad sometimes until it's not. And that's okay. But like, I don't know. I'm in this cycle of toxic perfectionism that's, like anti-productivity spiral. That's just, anyway. And
No,
I don't mean to argue with everything that you're saying, because I agree with everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm also just failing at taking any of that advice.
No, I understand. Like, and I also I actually get that a lot because like one of the reasons I don't do the 24-hour comic, right, is like my personality is not okay with showing up and just crapping something out really quick.
Right.
Like I want it to be good. I want it to be perfect. So I screw myself up on that challenge. And I've tried it twice, and both times I just didn't do well. I did the whole 24 hours, and the reason I didn't do well is I just wouldn't let go of a panel. Like I was just, and then I walk out of there feeling like a complete failure, which is bizarre because, like, once again, I was thinking about it in perspective. It's like, well, what is it? It's just a challenge. It's like a self-challenge where you go in. You're not getting like your 24-hour comic published, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, like most people are going to look at a 24-hour comic with a little leniency, being like, oh, that was done in 24 hours. That's a little different.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, I made a worse comic by just not going in and just being like, I'm just going to doodle and do it. And not be precious. It's a weird thing, but it's hard to get out of that. And I relate to it a lot because that's probably my biggest struggle. And similarly, I'm giving you advice, but it's very hard to hear it if you're in it. And then it's really hard when it's like being psyched out. It's like, I don't know the route out other than trying other routes, but maybe not a desperate attempt. Like maybe it's just not about breaking out of the rut. It's just about like leaning into it and being like, okay, I'm going to build another brick wall for the hell of it. And I'm going to fail at it. But I'm similar too. I have trouble building Legos with my son when I can't complete it because I'm like, I want to finish it and make it perfect. Like I mean, that's just a personality thing, I think. So it can be, I don't know. To me, it's I empathize. So yeah, I don't know, Scott. Any tips that might not sound like tips that Cory would give? Cory knows all the tips. And all
now this is just become me shooting down everything good. That's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
I don't know, Scott. What are you going to do? I mean, instead of advice, I'm curious on how you're going to tackle it, because I think we're coming at similar things from different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to, so this is sort of kind of happened before, and then we kind of got back together. But like I said, I think this is kind of the final nail in the coffin. But last time, basically what I did was I just worked on myself. I focused on myself and tried to make improvements in my own life, because that's all you can do. So I mean, I'm gonna continue. I mean, not that I ever totally got out of it, but I slacked off a little bit. But I definitely want to get into good shape. Just keep working out and just trying to be as positive as possible and try to, as much as I can, kind of look on the bright side, I mean, and when you go through stuff, and this is, I feel really bad. I don't feel confident giving advice to people who are like clinically depressed or whatever, because it's not something that I deal with on a regular basis. But I know, just having gone through, I try to think, having gone through similar situations and things like this, because I've been divorced and all this kind of stuff. So, and I know each time things eventually did get better, and they were better than before. It's kind of hard to see that right now. But in my experience, things always do get better. So I just kind of have to try to remind myself of that, and then just keep kind of moving forward. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's good. I always feel like when I'm hit with heavy stuff that's like depression, for myself, I always have this moment of like almost like a conscious, and I'm not saying it's this way for everybody, but for me, it's like there's kind of like these constant moments of like these two options where it's like I can just kind of ride out the depression and kind of roll with it and just go down this like whole rabbit hole, and it becomes like this additional thing where it's like that's why I was mentioning lists, because that's what I'll do. I'll just start making lists like, oh, this is another thing, and start going down that, or I can like try to just kind of like do what Scott's saying, but it's not like a choice where you're like, whoa, like everything's great and I feel positive and stuff. It's like a lot of it's just kind of faking it. And then it kind of, weirdly enough, at least, like Scott, like you were saying or whatever, it's like the worst case scenario, if you start like being like, well, I'm going to take some of this like negativity and start working out, it's like, well, you might end up with a better build. Like, right? It's not going to like harm you. Whereas like the other thing, it like feels good in the moment, and then like it doesn't feel good, but it's like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. But for me, there's but it's like it's I always feel like there's kind of those two ways to go, and it's very hard to like fight that pull, that magnetic pull of just like, and especially when it's dominating your thoughts and your time. It's just I don't know. So, but like you were saying at the top, it's like it's different for everybody, and situationally it's different, So
yeah, I mean, I think the key is to try to, because you could easily fall into, well, this is crap, this is garbage, I'm just gonna drink my problems away or something like that, which one thing I've been trying to, one thing I have done is just I just really haven't had a drink, not that I've ever really had like a problem with that, but I just figured that's not something I need right now. So but so instead of that, replace something like that feeling with just something positive, go running, go, walk my dog. I don't know, just those types of things. I think it's, so I don't know.
Yeah, I like that because I don't drink, but I think one of the things that is good to think about is to avoid any type of numbing behavior.
Yeah.
And numbing behaviors are kind of interesting because it could be anything. And sometimes normal behaviors that, are fine. They're just a way of relaxing, used to escape or used to numb or whatever, become bad. And so there's kind of, I think there's like two things that kind of came up as you were talking, Scott, that I think are really interesting. One is, you're in kind of like a hyper productivity mode, and I'm kind of the antithesis of that. But I think in either situation, like addressing the core concern, is good, because I think I don't know that it would be healthy for me to slip into like an overproduction
No.
situation,
Right.
without kind of dealing with everything, without
Yeah.
kind of just addressing what I need to address and figuring out what I need to figure out, and letting go of the stuff that I can't do anything about. I would like to be more productive, but it's almost like, bipolar. People feel great when they're in a manic stage, but that's not necessarily a healthy place to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just the opposite of, of a depression stage. So I think that's one of it. And then the other thing is, I think identifying and mitigating any numbing behavior. And so, like Scott, you mentioned, like drinking, is something that a lot of people do to kind of, like sometimes people have a drink, and that's not that big of a deal, but sometimes people are doing that to escape or avoid or numb things, and that can be really dangerous, and for me, it's not so much like an abusive situation with a substance, but I can see a lot of things that I could slip into that would be numbing behaviors. For example, binge watching TV. I like TV a lot, and I like movies, and I watch a lot of TV and movies. But I think this last week, it's been to an excessive amount, and it's a numbing situation, where I'm just kind of avoiding figuring things out. Or video games is another situation. Like, I like playing video games, and usually, in any given week, if you add up all the time I play in a video game, it's less than 2 hours. I'll play for 30 minutes here or there, a couple times a week or whatever. But I've marathoned some good 4 or 5 hour stints of video games or whatever, and so I think those are two good things: addressing the core issue, and then avoiding numbing behavior. So, an interesting comment. I try to drink my problems. When my wife left me, my family wouldn't let me. When I've been depressed or having a slump, having a support system always helped, which is a great comment. Very, very true. And I think sometimes, at least I do this, and I don't know if this is a male female thing or just an ego thing or just a me thing or whatever, but it seems to line up with some of those groups. I just figure I need to solve everything myself.
Yeah.
This is something that I need to handle. This is something that, that I'm going to be, I'm going to be Atlas and shoulder the burden of the entire world, because that's just who I am and what I do, or whatever. And that's a stupid and incorrect way to think.
I'm glad you touched on that, because I think that's a pretty common struggle with people, is like, leaning into other people, or sometimes leaning into the powerlessness of a situation, because there are some times where it's, there are some things that like it's like life is not judged on productivity,
Right.
Capitalism's judged by productivity, but like the human experience is not all based on productivity, and so like there are some times where it's like, I don't know, sometimes just things suck, and they just do suck, and it's good to actually just acknowledge that and be like, there is no solution, like this is just, it is what it is. So because I do find that, like, when I'm going through trying stuff, one of the most irritating things, I've always had this on-running joke about the overtly inappropriate optimist, where it's like the two towers fall on September 11th, and they're like, well, on the bright side, like there's more real estate in New York, like it's
Right.
just wrong time, like not really the time to be optimistic, and there's not really a positive spin on what happened there. It just kind of was a crappy thing,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think sometimes that's okay too, because I think a lot of people want the quick, like, well, on the bright side, because they want to feel better about whatever the bad thing you're going through is, and so I think sometimes that's that's okay too. Like just being like, just kind of embracing that it sucks, like, and just being like, it sucks, and like instead of going the Atlas route, just being like, and there's not really much to do, like you can't always shoulder the world, unless you're an Ayn Randian type, and then you can always shoulder the world because you create your own reality, and
I invented Reardon metal because I'm superior to everyone else.
You did do that.
Trains
are really fast moving too.
Right. Kayla's saying it's not a male female thing because she's having to do or learn to not do the same thing. And along those lines, it probably isn't a surprise to anybody that at one point in time I was really into Ayn Rand, and I think a lot of people who are kind of into productivity go through kind of like an Ayn Rand phase until we realize that treating human beings as some sort of tradable commodity is like a super evil way to like go through life. But yeah, along those lines, it's really interesting because I think there's a difference between what you know to be true in your heart and what you know to be true or understand to be true in your mind and your actions. I think those three circles, the Venn diagram where they all overlap, is kind of who you are. But if you move too far in any extreme, it becomes problematic. If you focus on only your actions, then you can lose your sense of self and your belief system and whatever. And if you focus only on your like kind of feelings, then you lose like a sense of logic and reason and purpose. And if you focus only on logic and reason and purpose, then life becomes kind of meaningless or whatever. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with that, but I think like a proper balance between kind of the heart, mind, mind and strength idea where, the things we do, the things we think, and the things we feel, in a balance is a better situation to be in than whatever. And because oftentimes when I'm experiencing something like this, I'm experiencing it because I'm too much in my own head. I'm just spinning out in my mind, and it's not terribly useful. Squatchy has an interesting comment that I want to bring up because I'm trying to force myself to celebrate wins, especially when I'm not feeling it. He said, Cory, Josh, and Scott, I just want to say that you guys rocked Werewolves and Unicorns. Such epicness from you guys. And I'll agree. I enjoyed both of your stories. So
thank you. I'm still waiting to get my copies.
Oh, you have yours, Josh. That's cool. Yeah, mine hasn't come yet.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I think mine will be here anytime, but yeah, I'm just.
But yeah, it looks pretty nice, and I like the matte paper and stuff. I was excited. So you guys will probably get them soon.
Yeah. Where I live, everything takes a day longer to get here. I'm not exactly sure why. There's a lot of jokes about, the mule train that has to bring it up the mountains or something. But
Well, I went to send out a package today and realized that the post office was closed. It was weird because it was like halfway open, like the to talk to. The automated stuff was open, like they kind of have it open, kind of broke apart where they've got the gate, but you can walk into the kind of vestibule or whatever and use the automated thing. But so I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I'm just mystified by the word vestibule.
Did I use that correctly? Because I'm not even sure if I did.
Really cool.
I think you could use it however you want, and I don't think anybody would challenge you because it's pretty awesome. So Kayla's saying when I got into a slump, I took on so many projects that I couldn't afford to be in a slump anymore. I don't think I have stopped since. I'm learning that isn't the best way to do it, but it worked. I've done that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that putting value on it is a good idea necessarily.
Yeah.
Because I think in certain periods and times in your life, like that's an effective way to do it, and I'd rather be doing that than not. But it's not a sustainable way to live.
Yeah. Agreed.
So there are definitely times where pushing yourself is super helpful. And well, I'll say this about the 48-hour art check. I did that for several years, where it was this kind of series of sprinting burnouts, where I'd sprint to burnout over and over again. And I remember Scott saying, talking about artists that are constantly productive and constantly putting stuff out. And I wouldn't say like a huge burnout, but yeah, I was in the middle of, I hadn't done anything for a day or two. And Scott was like, yeah, Cory, you're one of those artists that I look to as somebody that's always producing stuff. And that was weird to me to see someone's perception that didn't match my own, where I was beating myself up for not making stuff.
Yeah.
And then Josh, my perception of you was that you were constantly, producing. And then you said, man, I'm really struggling to get this stuff done. And that's why we started the 48-hour art check, was to like do that. And then it's been a really interesting thing, because it leveled out my production into a balance that has been way healthier than these kind of like sprinting burnout cycles. Yeah. And actually all weekend, as I've been attempting to do stuff, I knew that I would have to show up on this show and say what I've done.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And I think that was really helpful, because I think if I didn't have this like self-imposed deadline with peers that I respect, I would, I'd just be like, you know what? I'm just going to take the semester off. Like, what's 3 months? I'll just start a project after. And I never want to get back into the, waiting to live situation where it's like, I will do this after this happens, or I will feel this way after this achievement or this milestone, because you never reach that.
Yeah.
There's always something else to it's kind of like we say all the time, there's never like a good time to start.
Yeah.
There's also never a good time to continue. There's just it's an inconvenient thing. The life we're choosing is a life of inconvenience.
Yeah, and I can definitely say, like, even just that little micro thing I went through with like the drive or whatever, that Friday, man, like Saturday, I was like beat and feeling all out of it, because it's like working twice a shift, and I was just like, yeah, maybe I'll just, and I'm like, nope, art check, gotta get it done. Right. I was like, that's kind of a good thing. And but like we were saying, things can be good and they can be bad. An art check could be a really bad thing. I mean, perfect example of this is like, I remember Mike Emmeritz on Facebook kind of tackling the hundreds challenge for like the 10th time or whatever it is that he's done, because he's done it a million times. And getting kind of halfway through it and being like, this really isn't helping my comic. Like, it's not, it's actually like slowing down my productivity is a big problem, And it's like, I think for him at that time, it actually made sense not to do the 100 days challenge, because it was actually impeding like the whole thing it was designed for. And art check could totally do the same thing, where it's like that psyching out of like, I got to hit the thing for the art check. As long as it's positive, keep an art check going. But if it ever becomes like a thing where you're like super beating yourself up, like, then maybe it's like pull back a little,
Well, yeah, and we've taken a week off before, and it's been fine.
Yeah.
And I did see at one point in time over the weekend, I did see a road where I kind of imagine just sending a message to both of you guys and saying, I'm out, I'm done. And then I think that would have been running away, so I kind of like thought through, it was a valuable mental exercise. I kind of like thought through like, okay, where is that coming from? In reality, that's coming from like resistance. That's a form of procrastination or eliminating like a positive motivating factor in my life.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to be accountable to things that I have chosen to be and do.
Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about the design of it is like, if you don't have accountability, all things go, like,
right.
Because we're human beings are like justification machines. Like, we're very good at justifying very bad behavior.
Yeah.
And actually what Scott was mentioning with like drinking is something I do too, where it's like, if I have like a really bad day, that's the last time I ever have a drink. Like I'll drink if I have a good day, or if I get home and I'm a little tired and I want a drink to relax. But if it's like I got to shut this thing off kind of thing, I'm not going to drink that day. This is just, right. I know where that will go, and it's just not really going to do anything productive.
Yeah.
And I think one of the cool things about like, the art check is it's like, we all have these plans and these things we want to do with art, and those things are not going to do themselves. And so, it's good to have people to build you up too, like I know it's helped me like get to this point on my comic. Like, I don't know if I'd be like two pages to done. Almost 1 page now. So
yeah, I think that goes back to was it Frank that said that about the support system? Yeah. I mean, this is a support system. I mean, this art check, and it just feels good to kind of get some of that off my chest. I mean, I've talked to family and stuff about it, but I haven't really made that really public in any way. And the other thing that that I really want to try to do is I just reach out to some friends and stuff that I haven't talked to in a while, or just get out there more and talk to people, and instead of just kind of boarding myself up in my in my house and all that stuff, because I think it is kind of good, and it doesn't even have to be to talk about the situation, but just get out and talk to other whatever. I mean, I had a little bit of that at the conference, talking to creative people and stuff like that, but I want to do more of that, because I have a habit of just getting so just bogged down in everything that I do here, but I need to get out and socialize and stuff. So
that's a really, really good call. I mean, I always find like, at least for me, and like, I do think this might be almost universal with like any sort of mental struggle. The first thing, like the dark stuff, like depression, anxiety, all of those things, like when they hit, they usually try to get you alone.
Right.
It's like, and there's always, and once again, we're justification machines. So it'll provide you a million justifications of like, well, I can't do that because I have to blah, blah, blah. And like, it gradually will isolate you until it kind of has you in its clutches, whatever it is. And,
or even like, you're a burden to your friends, and so you shouldn't be around them right now, or like nobody wants to hear you, bring the mood down on everybody or whatever. And so it is kind of an interesting thing. Like it's very seldom where you're like, man, I feel like crap, and your brain, is like, hey, what you should do is go have a good time with some buddies, like go get around some people that care about you, or whatever. So I mean, I had a lunch with a buddy of mine in the math department today, and I just talked to him about what was going on, and it was great, because he didn't say he didn't try to like be overly optimistic of like, well, look on the bright side or whatever. And he also didn't, he wasn't like doom and gloom. Like, he was just kind of like, yeah, that sucks, man. Like I'm really sorry about that. And then it wasn't overly one way or the other. And we were able to talk about a number of different things. That was just one of the things we talked about. And then we also, talked about like mathematical equations because he has a PhD in math. And so he was telling me about like this proof that he was working on. Not that I was able to really follow what he was talking about, but like, it was a normal conversation, and it kind of normalized like a lot of the struggles and stuff, because I was like, this is like, he heard what I had to say, and it didn't like destroy him or our friendship, and everything's fine. Like it's not, it was just another topic of conversation. Not that he brushed over it, but it was interesting that we were able to like do that and then talk about other things and come back to that and then talk about other things. And
yeah.
Because
I think the world is full of people who don't struggle, and those people are liars. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's just, it's inevitably there's crazy stuff and I think like the cool thing about having other creatives around too is like how many people are going to understand, like if I'm like, man, my car got hit yesterday and I barely escaped with my life. I'm not going to be able to work on my comic. Like most people would be like, yeah, why are you caring about your comic? But most creatives would be like, yeah, that really sucks. Like, when are you going to be able to do that? So I think that's another reason to kind of surround ourselves with other creatives, and why people out there, if you guys haven't, should start their own art check with their own.
I have to put my head up while I read this comment. So just that's how I see Scott as well, always producing and getting stuff out. Cory I see as the wise Jedi master with sage advice and helpful insight. Josh I see as somebody who's persevered. All three of you have gotten me through slumps, times of hardship, just by hearing what you have to say. So I just thought I'd go full on Sith for that one. But yeah, that's it is interesting, and I've had a very similar experience when I was really down, and this is nothing compared to where I was like 2011, 2012 time, and I was really, really down. I actually found several people who were being really authentic with their struggles and how creativity was both something that they were struggling with and something that was helping them. Like Ink Pulp Audio was one. Like content warning, there's a lot of swearing and stuff, but it was interesting to see him struggle with the things that he was struggling with, and actually it was super helpful.
Yeah.
To like, and I mean Kevin Cross, even like when I came across Kevin, I think I first found him when he was like in the middle of like his divorce, and he was so real and authentic about it that it was just refreshing from a lot of the voices on social media that are like fake and weird and plastic and stuff. And I don't know, there's something about that. And I think there are kind of times and seasons where there are times when I'm really, that's what I need, is I need to hear that, like, there are human beings out there, they're surviving. They've also got things going on that are difficult. And there are other times where I'm like, I need some upbeat stuff, and that's when I get like, the creative pep talk, or, those type of podcasts, or I just find some like lighthearted audiobook to listen to. Like,
some book about wizards, right?
That was great. I listened to all 6 of those, and I'm through. I just finished the 3rd Percy Jackson book. My daughter's super excited about that. She's read all of them, so I'm reading that. And then for some reason this afternoon I was like, oh, cool, there's a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. Maybe I should read that. And then I got about an hour into that and I was like, no, this is for a happy time. I need to, I need some stupid wizard book or something. So I think I'll probably start the 4th Percy Jackson because I think sometimes young adult is a good place to be.
Yeah. All right. So do we feel like we're seeing a window out of the slump? I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah.
We helped everybody out that listens to us too, like ways to kind of just I don't know. This is kind of the type of thing I do in a slump is I just try to figure out with buddies who have similar goals in art, like what do we get out of it.
And I think maybe this is one of those episodes where it's okay that we don't wrap it up with a nice bow. You know, I mean, yeah. So,
right, bow, you know. But yeah. So I guess that'll do it. And we will see you guys probably on Wednesday. So. All right.